Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. Today's going to be a really fun show. I met this guy through Biggie Shack's show. Like Biggie brings in a whole bunch of cool collectors from a whole bunch of stuff. We were chatting before me, doing this video, and we have a common interest of Ghostbusters. And from what I can see of this guy's channel, he has amazing Ghostbuster collection. I'm not sure if he's going to be showing Ghostbusters in this video, but we're going to talk everything comics, and we're going to, have some fun. And I'd like to welcome to the show Puff Comics 83, and also known as Shaun. So there we go. Hey, so yeah, Shaun, tell me about tell me how you got started in comics, a little bit about yourself, and let's have fun with this.
All right, so before I started with comics, I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. I'm from Northeast, and my introduction to comics was like through various TVs and movies and stuff like that at the time. And one of the most known movies was the Superman movies with Christopher Reeve.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I love those movies. Christopher Reeve to me is still my favorite Superman. And I remember, growing up, my grandfather used to read comics to me. Some of them were Superman, some of them were Spider-Man. And he would read comics, to me, whenever I went to stay at my grandparents' house. And, that was my introduction into the comic book medium because, you see it on TV. Another big influence was the Batman 66 series with Adam West. And
oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, so I used to love watching those reruns. And back then, reruns was dominating TV, with Happy Days, Honeymooners, and all the classics. So, but Batman 66 and the Christopher Reeve Superman was my introduction.
Did you like the number 3 with Richard Pryor? I love that. That's my favorite of the series.
Really? That's your favorite?
Yeah, I like the idea of making a supercomputer that could come to life. That whole AI.
It's funny because the concept was there, and I think it was supposed to be Brainiac, but they didn't. They scrapped that and went with just the supercomputer.
Yeah.
I personally feel that Superman 3 is underrated, but it's not like a great movie. To me, the movie should have ended with the Dark Superman versus Clark Kent. Like that to me would have been a satisfying ending. Cool. And another thing is it could have led to Bizarro. That Dark Superman could have turned into Bizarro.
So many things that they at the time I didn't know those characters. Like back then when it came out. So I didn't know that they could have gone so many cool routes. Like they didn't, but they could have. It would have been cool. Yeah, Bizarro would have been awesome. That would have been really I'm a big Bizarro fan now, but yeah.
There's so many things that they could have done. And like I said, the movie is fine, but I think the problem was it became like a slapstick type movie as opposed to what the Richard Donner movie was.
That's because of Richard Pryor. He was the king of comedy.
But I will also say it's Richard Lester as well, because his version of Superman 2 added a little bit more slapstick comedy to it, where when you watch the Donner cut, they take the comedy is like completely taken out.
Yeah. So but yeah, I don't know. That was like I didn't actually like Superman 1 because I found it a bit too dark and too dreary, and I liked 2 and 3 better. I don't know why.
I understand what you say, but to me, what makes Superman 1 so special is Christopher Reeve's performance.
Oh,
to me, awesome. He is the beacon of hope. He is the light of Superman to overcome that darkness. And while the ending is a bit cheesy with the whole spinning the earth backwards and stuff, like you start thinking like that, is that possible? Like how is this?
I don't think it works that way.
No. But Christopher Reeve really highlighted the importance of Superman. In one of my comics, I have a Superman comic that to me represents the true ideology of Superman, because a lot of writers struggle when it comes to presenting Superman, because he's so powerful and stuff. Like, how can you write? How can you write a character so powerful and people can relate to him? But if with the right writers, Superman can be written well and told in various good stories. And one of the books that I'm going to show later when we talk about the comics
Okay.
is one of those stories that I really
If it's the
enjoyed.
one I think it is, it's a really great story. If there's one that I can think of that kind of really encapsulates Superman well. The thing, just quickly, the thing I liked about Christopher Reeve is he kind of like something about him is so innocent and pure. Do
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Like, and I think that's what you kind of want in Superman. That kind of almost he's clean. He doesn't seem like there's no
He's
darkness to him. You know what I
like
mean? Like,
and he's so likable and presentable
yeah.
that he definitely made the Superman character feel relevant with how his performance was. Like he had the
Mhm.
nerdy side of Clark Kent, you
Yeah, he
know.
really
And then
contrasts.
when he's Superman, he's that superhero, but yet he has a suave look about him. And
Mhm.
Christopher Reeve just nailed it perfectly. I
Yeah,
like Henry Cavill, but I didn't like the route that they tried to go with his movies, making him dark and gloomy.
that's what I'm
You know,
saying. That's the problem with Cavill. I like him. He looks the part.
yeah,
But the one issue I don't, there's not much clarity between Clark Kent and Superman. You know, he's not that nerdy looking when he's, you know, Clark Kent. And there
yeah,
needs to be more of a, you know, oh, this guy couldn't possibly be Superman because he's so different in character than Superman. You know, I found
hmm,
that Carvel was, you know, oh, he's wearing glasses, sure, but you know, that's it. That's the only distinction that they made between the two characters in the Superman movies, like later Superman movies.
yeah. And I'm hoping they can rectify it because I will say the ending of the Black Adam movie gave me a little hope, especially hearing that John Williams score. You know, like
Hmm.
oh man, you
Yeah,
when
yeah,
I
yeah,
think of
yeah, yeah,
that score, I think of the Christopher Reeve movies
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
how
Well,
he
that's
lit
so
hope
true.
and how superheroes should be. So
Yeah,
we'll,
did you like the Black Adam movie?
I enjoyed it for
Yeah,
what
I
it
liked it
was.
too. Yeah. Yeah, I was, you know, I was, I was one of the people that really liked it. I don't know. I gave it really high marks. I gave it like a seven, you know, seven range, 7, 8 out of 10, maybe. You know, I kind of wish they gave a little bit more origin to Hawkman and to Doctor Fate. I wish a little bit more origin was spent on them.
Yeah,
But that would be my only complaint. Like, you know, I would have taken less time with the mother and son kind of story, which
yeah.
didn't add anything to me as a comic guy. You know,
And I'll be honest, I rolled my eyes when they tried to have the son teach Black Adam things like it was Terminator 2 and stuff
it was
like that.
very
I was like,
Terminator 2.
so I
Where
was
he had
like,
to do the catchphrase thing and stuff like that.
I was like, no,
You
no.
just needed to say, "I'll be back," and then it'll be
But
perfect.
I will say, while I grew up with Batman and Superman and a little bit of the Wonder Woman,
Hmm.
Marvel wasn't like my biggest thing because at the time it was Spider Man and X Men that was like dominating when it came
Yeah,
to Marvel, and especially in the '90s when those cartoons came out. You know,
yeah, that's
and
true. That was huge at the time.
it was
The
big, and I was so deep into both of those Spider Man and X Men comic books, and whereas DC, it was like Batman and Superman, and that was it for me.
Mhm.
Because
How about
I wasn't as big of a DC fan growing up outside of those two characters, and
yeah,
I didn't pick up a lot of other DC books outside of those two. So
yeah,
that's why,
I have to say I'm the same way actually. Yeah.
and you know when it'll come back around when I talk about getting back into comics because I had to take a like 6 year hiatus from comics.
I
But
think a
you know
lot
when
of
I
people
came,
did.
yeah, but when I came back, that's when I tried to know get
Get
more
out.
into the DC universe and read other characters. You
So
know,
were you a big collector in the 90s? Like because you'd be that right age for that to be kind of your pivotal kind of time period.
the '90s was when I really was getting more into comic books, and my first comic book convention was 1992. You know,
Oh
I remember
wow.
my dad took me to my first con in '92 at the Javits Center. and that was like the first time I've seen like all these comics, all these toys and comic cards and stuff. I got into a lot of things in the 90s, not just comic books, but
Yeah, yeah.
trading cards and
Oh, wow.
baseball, because we used to go to the Met games every other month,
Oh,
so
nice.
that was a big part of, going through the 90s. But yeah,
Hmm.
90s was like my big introduction in
The
terms of
collecting.
the comic book collecting world.
Hmm.
And one thing I feel like is lacking with today's comics is when you read a comic back then, they always have cliff notes on the side with the editor say, "Oh, this happened in this issue."
Yeah, it's almost like you got to follow the trail in terms of the story.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and that heightened my collecting ability because I remember those cliff notes, and that's when I started digging for back issues. I'm looking for that specific
Yeah,
issue,
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
and
yeah, I remember that. Actually, yeah, it's very true that you'd have to go and find that other issue that, tells the story. Like they would always do like the little asterisks,
yeah,
like something, something in the story, and then they put a little asterisk, see, blah, 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 the
and
story. Or,
and to me that was a big part of me gaining more knowledge of comics. You read a book and you feel
mhm.
like you're missing a piece of the story and stuff. So
Yeah, yeah.
now you go into the back issue bins, and by the late 90s, my ability to dig in those back dollar bins and
Hmm.
find books that I needed was heightened. And by that point, I was like a full blown collector and
Cool.
reader.
So, did your father collect comics as well, or did you get much
Nah,
influence that way? I mean,
I will say my aunt, his sister,
okay.
was the biggest influence on me because she was a collector of comics,
Oh, okay.
and she took me to a con in '93, and one of the books that I have, I'll show it because it's like
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah. Sure. Yeah, yeah. Makes sense. I'll make you big, and then.
um this is like an extra copy, but I got like 3 copies. But it's this book
Oh,
right here,
that's such an awesome
Uncanny,
book.
yeah, Uncanny X-Men 300.
Hmm.
When we went to the con, I have a copy that's signed by Scott Lobdell, who
Hmm.
um who written
Yeah.
the book. And I remember at the time, we're sitting at a panel and he's talking and stuff. And as a kid, you don't want to sit at no panel and hear dudes talk. You want to go back out on the floor and
Yeah, you
and,
want to
and
see all the
explore.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you want to explore and see all the stuff. But they was able to get a signed copy and they gave it to me. And
Hmm.
it's beat up because back then I read my comics. You
Yeah.
get a book, you don't think of the signature, you just want to read it. And his writing and John Romita Jr.'s art when it
Yeah,
was
it's really
pretty
awesome.
decent.
Hmm.
I just fell in love with it. And I always credited my aunt, God rest her soul. She passed away in 1999.
Mm.
I always credit her for really pushing me. Like my father saw my interest in comics and said, "I'll take you to cons and stuff and have you have some fun." But she
Hmm.
was a big comic collector, and me and her like would go to comic book stores
That's
and conventions, and other than that, but
that's
she was a
cool.
big influence on
Yeah.
my comic book collecting.
Yeah, I wish I had somebody like that in my life. I didn't have anyone that in my family that collected comics, so I was sort of like the lone wolf in it. So it was kind of, but it's good that you had somebody in the family that kind of inspired you. That's pretty cool. So,
Yeah,
how about you show, since we're in that part of the segment, anyways? How about you show some of the comics that you decided to bring to?
another character that I'm big into is Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, nice.
Um, of course, big part of it was due to Arnold Schwarzenegger. The first Conan movie I remember watching it was just blown away as a kid, and
Yeah, I love that
love
movie.
and I love Conan the Destroyer too. A lot of people kind of crapped on it, but I thought
No, it's
it
good.
was pretty fun,
Yeah, I liked it.
and that's what started my love for Conan comic books. Whether it was this, I didn't get into the Savage Sword till later on, but I
Hmm.
picked up a few Conans in the '90s before I kind of tampered off and then re got back into it. But Conan was a big part of my childhood, thanks to Arnold Schwarzenegger in the movie. I got that. You know, of course, first appearance of Red Sonja.
Yeah.
I love that. I picked up another copy because, and you know, I'll show one. Shout out to Stone Cold Steve. He AOK'd me this, signed by Roy Thomas.
Do that?
Yes. You know, we was at a convention, and this is where we first met Comics with Bueller back in like late 2020 in the holiday con. And while I was talking to Bueller, I feel somebody digging in my bag, and it was Steve. He put something in my book bag. So I'm like, "What are you doing?" And I opened it up, and he put this in there.
Wow!
You know, he tried to sneak it in there and hope I go home and see it. But I was like, but yeah, Stone Cold Steve Whiten, man. And another thing that I love about is meeting people in the community, because prior to Instagram, you know, I was morely keeping to myself. I was more antisocial. I was on Facebook, but I wasn't really active on there, just following the news and stuff. But I remember my brother Jace told me, "Hey, why don't you just join Instagram and share your comics?" You know, he shared his video game, so you should share your comics. So I jumped on Instagram in 2016, October 2016, and I just posted comics, you know, and sure enough, within the year, you know, community people was following me, and I found a whole new group of friends that I can talk comics about. And, you know, even people who follow me and they see that, hey, you're missing this issue and stuff, I can hook you up with it. And he's a random stranger saying that he can help me out with hook me up with a book. And I was like, well, you know, I first in my mind I was like, well, what's the catch? You know, is there a price involved and stuff? You know, and he said, no, I'll just send it to you, man.
Yeah, it's
and I was kind of blown
about the community. The people really want to like share the hobby and share the passion with other people in the community. It's pretty great.
And when you see people like that's, you know, sending you gifts and stuff, I want to return the favor, you know, and do the same to others. And that's how you build a relationship. That's how you build a community and friendship. And you know, me, Steve, Cantonese Comic Kid, Bronze Age Byron and stuff, we go out, we hang out, we AOK each other, and we just have a lot of fun. And if you notice on my YouTube page, for all the comic store visits, a lot of them is with those guys. And you know, we just have a lot of fun doing these comic crawls.
See, that's kind of cool that you actually have somebody local. See, I'm in Canada. Like, there's nobody around me. So it's cool that you have people local to you that can sort of hang out with you.
And I didn't know the community in Florida was so big. Like, there's so many community members here in Florida, you know, that I was like, shoot, man, I could drive up to drive down to Tampa and meet Steve. You got Hialeah, 90 of them down in Miami. You know, you got Cookie, Just a Little Podcast in West Palm Beach. So, and there's some up north, Metarod. He's up in Tallahassee. Night Tiger Comics is in Ocala. So it's just so many people in Florida that we got our own big Florida family.
You could almost have like a little Florida comic community or something. You know, I'm actually going to Florida for Christmas.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Yeah, I'll be in Sarasota, so it'll be cool.
Sarasota,
I can maybe run into a few people while I'm there, but yeah.
Bronze Age Byron is in Bradenton.
Oh, that's actually I'm in Bradenton. I always say Sarasota because it's more.
Yeah, they close by. Because you know when I went down to Bradenton, he took us to Sarasota for one of the spots.
Yeah.
So definitely, if you can hook up with him.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be cool. Yeah, I always like meeting fellow, you know, comic-y people. You know.
And these videos that I do on my channel, they're documents. I gotta document all these meetups, all these stores that we visit, because you know, sometimes you want to just look back and say, hey man, I got to hang out with Geek Aficionado or Old Man Spider and a lot of people in the community. I gotta get this on film. I gotta get the
Yeah.
photos and put it all in one big compilation.
So yeah. So did you ever meet? Like you said, you met with comics with Bueller. Did you ever
Yeah,
meet Comic Tom or any of the other kind of big YouTubers?
I
Or
met Comic Tom earlier this year for the first time.
oh, really?
You know,
What was he like
at
in real
MegaCon.
life? Is he the same kind of character that he is?
He's the same. You know, very. You know, there's times where he's energetic, and then there's times where he's worn out, but he still presents himself well.
Hmm.
You know, but he was pretty cool. I mean, I know a lot of people give him a lot of hate, but you know,
Well, because he comes
I
off a little bit disingenuous. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't seem real. Like, you know, like
yeah,
it seems like he's putting on a show rather than being genuine. I think
yeah,
that's the issue that people have, right?
yeah. That's a lot of that, and all the speculation and overpricing of dollar books and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But me, because I've known Tom since 2017 on Instagram before he got into all this. You
Oh,
know, when
really?
he was, yeah, he was very whimsical on his Instagram, and we used to like we do the comic cover challenge each month,
Okay.
and he would do videos going over the cover and describing how it fits the theme of the challenge and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And they were pretty fun. You know, that's how I was introduced to him and a lot of other people.
Well, that's cool. I actually do a cover challenge every week on my channel.
Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, I always like those things. I always find it's really I like seeing what people pull out of their collection. You know what I mean? Like, you know, like some random book that I've never seen before, and it's like sort
yeah.
of cool. You know, it's like, oh wow, that's actually a
It's
pretty cool
it's
book.
it's so fun to see other people's collection
Hmm.
and you marvel at what they have. You know,
Hmm.
the certain characters that I'm not into it, but then the cover looks so good. I'm like, damn, I want a
Yeah, you
copy
pick
of
it
that.
up.
You know, then you add it to your search list and stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, so the beauty of Instagram and YouTube is just getting together and sharing our comics. You know, sometimes we share stories of what this comic mean to you. You know,
Hmm.
like I did a live stream where we talked about comics that got you emotional. You know, that you shed tears on because there are a
Yeah,
lot of
yeah.
stories that you know that really affects you as a person. You know, you get emotional about it. So
Hmm.
you know, it's always stories that can hit you in different ways that change that shapes your character.
Yeah, it changes the way you think and stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So okay, so show me some more comics. Like we distracted you from showing your comics. So
Um. Also, I do a live stream with Varangian Vigilante on his
okay.
channel, and we talk movies. You know, because we
Oh,
love
okay.
talking some movies. Right now, we're currently in the Rocky phase. We've been talking Rocky all month, but you know, we couldn't do a show yesterday because he was busy. But
Hmm.
he sent me some AOKs, and I sent him some AOKs, and this was one of the books that he AOK'd me.
Oh, nice. That's a really odd one
Yeah,
in a
because
way.
these are
Like
the Marvel
it's
magazine size books, and this is foreign. This is
oh yeah.
overseas.
I just see it's like was the original title with Savage Sword of Conan on it, or is
Now
that different?
this is actually part of the Avengers, the origin of T'Challa.
Yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. I've seen
over
it.
there, they group it with Savage Sword of Conan, you
Hmm.
know, in these magazine size books. So you get the Avenger story and you get a Conan story in them.
That's very odd. What a weird mix.
Yeah.
That's really cool though. So where's that from?
This is from overseas because you know Marvel also had like their UK line where they
Okay, so
did
that's
the
like Pence got it.
yeah.
Yeah, cool.
And VV, by the way, he's in Austria. That's where he's based in. So you
Oh
know, it's
wow.
I never would have thought that I'd be doing YouTube with somebody over in Europe.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
that's
yeah,
the beauty of doing this YouTube is that you can communicate with people across the world.
yeah.
One of my favorite Savage Sword stories, you know.
Yeah, the Savage Sword ones had amazing covers. Like I really love those kind of, you know.
And then it really makes me appreciate black and white artwork even more. You know, because
Yeah.
back when I was younger, I always wanted the color books. You know,
Hmm.
I saw a book comic that was black and white, and I wasn't interested in it. as I
Yeah.
got older, and then I started realizing there's a there's a huge advantage of black and white, where you get to see a lot more detail without the color. And to
Hmm.
me, Savage Song really highlight that with the amazing artists that run that.
Mm.
This book was another book that was A-OK to me by Jeff Steve.
Oh, nice. That's one of my favorite.
Yeah,
That's a really high grade. It looks like
it's a mid grade because
it's quite
the
nice.
back has some scuffs on there,
But yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah.
but
It looks really nice from the front.
and Vampirella was a character that you know seeing that in the 90s and as a kid, of course, it's hot female, the bad girl era of comics in the
Yeah.
90s were her and Lady Death and Purgatory.
Yep.
Um, but then, I started reading some of her stories, and it's a good mix of horror, drama, and a lot of other things. But,
Hmm.
it was intriguing. And
Yeah.
I enjoyed reading some of those stories from the Harris run up to Dynamite. But yeah, to have this issue number one, first appearance, first issue, 1969,
Mm.
man,
Yeah, it's great. And that's
it's
Fazetta
awesome.
art too, which is really great.
Um, this is a book from a creator,
It's strange.
did a unofficial Ghostbuster comic, but it was really good, and I really enjoyed it. It's like it picks up right after, like, a couple of months after the first movie, and he did such a great job with these characters, and he
So
even
is
had sent me some stickers of the real
Oh, nice.
Ghostbusters.
So is this before the actual official comic that came out
No, this
for?
this came out in 2020.
Oh,
He
okay,
was
okay.
working on this, and he sold it on his website, and I picked up a copy. I got two copies because one came a bit damaged, so he
Oh,
sent
okay.
me another one. But yeah, it it's great. His name is Richard Kripp, as on the top.
Nice. He
But
does a pretty good like he captures the likenesses of the characters quite well.
yeah, real well.
Yeah.
And then of course I had to get this is part of the IDW run, but I had to get it because of the homage to the Batman Joker.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I love homage covers.
Yeah. Sometimes homage covers can be done well, and then
Hmm.
sometimes they are overly done.
Yeah.
When you got too many ASM 300 homage covers, it gets played out quick. Like
There's like a million of them.
I'm tired of seeing those ASM 300 homage covers. But
Yeah.
something like this is like you rarely see, and I'm like, yeah, and
I like
I love the
yeah.
wavy line card and the
Yeah, I
two
was about to say
characters.
that. Yeah, I love that scene in the movie. That was such a
Yeah,
great scene. Like,
yeah, it was awesome. So I had to grab that. This is the Superman book that I was talking about. That personally one of my favorites.
hmm.
And that's
Oh.
issue 775 by Joe Kelly. You know, one thing I love about the story is that it reinforces the nature of what superheroes represent. And this
Hmm.
was the first appearance of Manchester Black and his elite squad. They're
Okay.
like a group of anti-heroes that defeat villains, but they don't care about whoever is around, and
Oh, so
innocent
they're
lives
they're
are
sort of like
died.
vigilantes and kind of
Yeah,
over the top, not so
yeah.
not
They don't.
necessarily good.
And Joe Kelly, this was like his response to The Authority by Warren
Hmm.
Ellis, and
Hmm.
that he wanted to show that this, these group of heroes that do all this, killing of not only villains, but whoever
Collateral
is
damage.
around. Yeah, the collateral damage that happens. He wanted to show that Superman represents the good in what he does. Not
Hmm.
only does he stop the threat, but he makes sure that nobody dies, and that it
Hmm.
affects him a lot when people are dying just unnecessary. And this
That's
story really reintroduces that Superman trope, that what he represents as a superhero.
mm,
It's one of my favorite Superman stories.
I'll have to pick that one up. I don't have that in my collection. It's a I
Well,
think that's something that's really missing from movies nowadays. Like, if you look at movies nowadays, they don't care. They really don't care. Like if you're a side character or like just somebody that appears on screen, they don't care if you die. They just, like that's one thing I was upset about with the Black Panther movie that just came out. There was a scene where Riri just kills like a bunch of cops and nobody seems to care. And she's a hero. She's supposed to be a hero, and she's yet doing these kind of, in my opinion, fairly evil things.
The movie definitely has problems,
Yeah,
and
but I see that in a lot of movies now where they just
yeah,
don't care about people's lives. It's like,
and like the MCU, they address things a bit too late. They tried to address it with the whole Civil War movie with all the casualties from the first Avengers and stuff. But I'm
mhm.
like, that should have been addressed right after, like immediately after all these loss
Yeah,
of
yeah,
lives and stuff.
yeah. It's kind of weird. So like, and for example, WandaVision really bothered me as well. She like tortures a town, like
The
just
whole
torture.
time.
And then they're like, "Oh, you gave up so much for them."
And then she go full evil and Doctor Strange. I'm like,
Exactly. Yeah. It's just like so messed up. But do you have any other books you want to show? I'll make you big again. Oh wow. Okay.
I
I
love
always liked Red Sonja. That's my version of Red Sonja. Like I like when she's wearing the metal bra.
and drawn by Frank Thorne, the late Frank Thorne.
Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, I love these covers and the stories in them are really well done. I mean, of
So
course, Roy Thomas just nails it when it comes to fantasy and Hyborian age. This is my favorite cover right here.
yeah, it's really cool. So was Thorne the one that really introduced that whole metal bra, that style of Red Sonja, or was she done like that before that? Because
Um,
if you look at the original first appearance, she's like wearing like almost like a shirt that's like a iron, like a chainmail
this
shirt. Yeah, and I don't personally like that look. I prefer the Thorn style.
I think they did introduce the chain bikini in the
Hmm.
Conan run, but I think Thorne popularized it with his
Okay.
artwork, and and he really like nailed the character, and I love it. That
Yeah.
was like that was my start with Red Sonja was picking up a back issue of that and enjoying it.
Oh,
I was
nice.
able to get I was able to get this from my local comic shop, Epic Comics.
Hmm.
Um, the first issue was the most money, and
Hmm.
then because my shop does a great job with customer service, he let me have the other two for pretty much free. I paid $100
Oh,
for
nice.
the 4 issues. So
Yeah. I mean, actually, in reality, though, 2 and 3 and 4 are actually not cheap either. They're actually
yeah,
fairly expensive by themselves.
yeah. I mean, one is the most expensive, but those other
Yeah,
issues
yeah,
are not cheap. So to get it all for 100, I'll take that.
yeah.
Because
That's a great deal.
one of my favorite Spider-Man stories is this four-parter that includes Tarantula and Will o' the Wisp. And that's
Oh, nice.
Amazing Spider-Man 233 to 236. And one thing I love about this story is how Tarantula is beaten in the first issue. And then, in the second one with Will o' the Wisp, he's being experimented on because he wants an advantage over Spider-Man. But then
Mhm.
he gets transformed into a literally spider, and
Yeah,
as the
yeah.
issues go on, his mind starts getting more and more jaded and devoid of human form
Hmm.
and becoming more spider like. But
Mm.
they really do, and this was written by Roger Stern, one of my favorite writers. He really does make you feel sympathetic for Tarantula, by the
Hmm.
time you get to the last issue.
Oh,
And
wow.
the
He's like
shocking
full
part,
spider mode. Like
yeah.
it's fairly.
And I always thought this story was tragic and well done, written by
Mhm.
Stern. And of course, 2 issues later, after 36, he introduced one of my favorite villains, the Hobgoblin, which I also
Mm.
have in another box. But this was one of my favorite Spider stories that nobody really talks about.
Yeah, no, that's great. Like, I like when people show stuff that, totally under the radar, totally like nobody's really given credit that it probably deserves.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. I like that.
Now, here's my story. This was in the late 90s. I went to a convention and John Romita was there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the whole thing I said earlier about I didn't care about, seeing Scott Lobdell and talking about, I want to see all the comics and explore the whole con. Well,
Mm-hmm.
here, when John Romita was there, he's a big Spider-Man artist. So,
Yeah.
me and my dad was there and, he said, why don't you get your Spider-Man book signed by him? And at the time, I was thinking, hey, man, that'd be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Then I stood in line and I noticed something. A lot of people had older Spider-Man books,
Oh, okay.
that he did.
Mm-hmm.
I had this.
I don't think he did that book.
He he did not. And when I noticed, I was panicking, because I was like, man, I'm standing in line holding the book that he didn't do. And what if he sees this and rejects it and say, oh, I ain't do this book? Because you don't know how people
Yeah,
or a
sometimes they
person will
act like
react.
that. They're like,
Yeah.
I didn't do this book. Why are you getting me to sign this? Yeah.
Yeah. And because at the time I'm still young, I didn't know no better on what he did and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I wanted to jump off the line. But my father was like, nah, stay on the line. He'll sign it. It's Spider-Man. He'll sign it. Mm-hmm. So I'm panicking. I'm sweating and stuff. I'm worried as hell. And I get up to him. I introduce myself. I shake his hand. I hand him the books, knowing that he might just reject them. He looked at them and he said, son, I did not do these books, but if you want me to sign them, I'll sign them.
Nice.
I glanced over to my dad. He's like, yeah. So, of course, he signed it.
That's really cool. He actually signed it in really, like, it almost looks like it's like, because of the webbing.
Yeah.
It looks like it's actually like almost like framed, the signature. It's really well placed.
Yeah, it is. And, he signed another book from that era. And
that's Todd McFarlane, isn't it?
No, this is a Todd Nuck.
It almost looks like Todd McFarlane. Just
a lot of people were emulating Todd McFarlane. Like
yeah.
Liefeld and McFarlane was highly imitated among the 90s and stuff. But it was such a pleasure to meet him. He was so nice, and we took a picture. God knows I can't even find the picture. I'm still kicking myself for not being able to find it.
Find that picture and post it on your Instagram.
Trust me, I would. When I find it, it'll be the first thing I do is post it on Instagram.
Yeah.
But he was so cool, and for him to say, I'll sign these books if you want me to, is such a stand-up thing, because most artists will probably look at that like, that's not my work, so why I sign it? And
sometimes they get really offended too.
And me being, I was at the time, I was like 14, 15 years old. Psychologically, it can mess me up meeting the artist for the first time, and he rejects you and say, "Oh, I ain't do this, and I'm not signing that."
Mm-hmm.
But he said, cool. He said he'll sign it, and that it's a story I've told multiple times, but I had to tell it on here with you because
it's great.
It definitely. I love telling the story because it's definitely one of those positive. Take a bad situation and turn it into a positive.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah. This was my first ever comic book sketch cover I got done by an artist.
Oh, nice. Who's the artist?
The franchise. The signature.
Oh, interesting.
And Batman Shadow. He did a great job with that.
That's really cool. I like. That's an interesting crossover. Yeah.
It was pretty good. I enjoyed it. I mean, Batman and the Shadow. That it just made sense.
But yeah, they do make sense. I mean, I think Batman is kind of ripped off the Shadow. Like, the Shadow came out first, and then there's a lot of similarity between the two characters.
So a slab Wolverine.
Nice.
And of course, like I said, being a big X-Men fan of the 90s, Wolverine was one of my favorites, but he was
Yeah,
everybody's favorite.
I
And of
think so.
course, Mike Zek, Punisher.
Yeah, that's a great one. Yeah, I want to get that whole run. That little, it's like 4 parts, right? Or 5 parts.
But those are all the comics that I wanted to share.
Okay, well that's cool. I mean, yeah. I mean, I like the fact that when I do these shows, everybody shows a little different stuff. That's what I think is really interesting. So I like the fact that you showed a lot of the stuff that I actually collected back in the '90s. That was all stuff that I was like chasing, like that Punisher one that you showed at the end. I only picked that up recently. I was like chasing that book for like 30 years or something crazy. I just like I always kind of got discouraged because it was always a bit pricier than I would have wanted to pay. And I just happened to find it on IG where somebody had a claim sale and they were willing to negotiate for it. So I was like, oh wow, finally get it for a reasonable
Well,
price.
For another shout out when it comes to his Man Cave comics, he AOK'd me Conan the Barbarian. And this was a book that I
Yeah.
had on my wish list for many years. You
Hmm.
know, I try and say I want to find the right deal for the
Hmm.
book, because you don't
Yeah,
want to
yeah, yeah.
like break the bank and stuff. Or I'll sell a few comics here or there to try and add some money to it and stuff. But Man Cave being generous, he AOK'd me this. He asked me, man, what's your book that you want? I was like, Conan #1, and he's like, I got you. And
Wow, what a good
shout
deal.
out to Man Cave. Like I said, I would love the AOK Man Cave. But I feel like that got everything. You know,
Yeah, you'd be hard to A-OK because it's like,
yeah.
you know,
It's like Steve. Steve, I know he's saying the one big rare book that he wants is a Fantastic Four 5 First Doctor Doom.
yeah. Well, that's
If
a
we could
hard
all,
book to A-OK.
I know, but we helped them out. I don't know if you remember last year,
Hmm.
MegaCon. I think it was Jimmy Geek Aficionado set up
Yeah,
the thing where we all contributed to him getting that Tales of Astonished first group. You
yeah, I
know,
heard about that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. So if we could do something like that, all community members just pool money together and stuff to try and get at least a decent copy of that book.
Hmm. Yeah,
It,
yeah.
it'd be worth it just for that.
Yeah, we should almost do like sort of like, if we get like about 100 people to all sort of, contribute like $20 or something like that, where it's like, and then it creates like a fund to get somebody's their grail. That'd be kind of cool.
And it's
Then
awesome. I've seen Biggie, got the Incredible Hulk #1. Off
number two, you mean
was it 2? Yeah, 2.
number two? He
And
got. I think that was that Man Cave that A-OK'd that to him.
I
I
think they
think.
got together. Him, 84 Geek and stuff. They got together
Yeah,
to
yeah.
put money involved and get him that book.
That's an awesome book. I mean, that's yeah. I was like, wow. Yeah. Some of the yeah, I really love that about the community actually that they do all these pretty amazing AOKs. Like I mean, to get AOK'd Conan 1 is just that's a pretty major book in my opinion.
And I'm close. I'm getting real close to completing the whole run.
Oh
When
really?
one of the questions you asked was what was I actively hunting, and
Yeah,
I
yeah,
know you've seen me on the Collector Club. Lots of Conan. I've been trying to get that run
yeah. Do
complete.
you have all the keys for that run or?
The last key I needed was the Elric, I think
Oh,
14,
okay.
and Cantonese Comic Kids, Steve and Byron all got it for me.
Oh
I don't
wow.
have it physically, but I know they went to
It's
a
on the
little
way.
show, and when the next time I see them, they'll hand it to me.
I have that
So
book. Yeah, it's a great book.
yeah, so I've been actively like trying to complete that Conan run. My man VV Varangian, he completed
Mhm.
it 2 months ago.
How
Because
many
he's a
books
big
are in the run? Like 100 something?
275.
Oh wow. Wow,
Yeah,
that's a big one.
it's a big run.
Wow.
And what helped me out was my comic shop.
Hmm.
Because my my owner, LCS owner, is a big Conan fan as well.
Okay.
So he was able to buy a collection and he had a lot of Conans. So he hit me up like, Shaun, I got a lot of Conans that came in. So I went to the shop, and it was so many Conans that I needed, and even a couple that I already had, but I was like, I'll take them anyway. So I got a long box, put them all in the long box, and purchased it for like $100.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
And so that really narrowed it down to like, now I need to get the rest of them.
So how many are you missing from the run?
Just that Elric one. That's
it.
Yeah. Once I have it in my hands, I got the whole run.
Wow, that's awesome. Congrats.
The only thing I need to work on is the annuals, and I got half the annuals.
Okay.
But in terms of from 1 to 275, once I get 14 in my hand, I have the whole run.
Wow, that's huge. That's crazy. It's cool when you have that whole run like complete. I think that's just amazing.
It's the most satisfying thing as a collector.
Yeah, my big thing is I'm trying to get the Wonder Woman run. Like that's there's like 329 books in the run. It's like,
and it's like when you're digging for them, you're looking for a specific issue. You got a string of the numbers like, oh, I need 36, and you go to 31.
It's like,
and you get 36 is not there.
Yeah, it's always like, you'll get 37 and 35.
Yeah.
It's weird. Yeah, it seems like everyone's always missing the same book or something, and they always, grab it. But so what else are you chasing? What other books are you kind of hunting for?
I want to complete the Jungle Action run.
Oh, okay, that's a good one.
That's another one where even the regular issues are not easy to find, and they're not cheap either. They're like $20+ dollars. But I think I have it's probably over here, because I know I had it over here. But Al from the Comic Call crew AOK me #1 of Jungle Action.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and I was mainly like focusing on Black Panther, from 5 forward. But he's like, hey, if I'll pick up #1 for you and send it to you, and I was like, thank you very much for that, because
those books used to be so inexpensive, but after the first Black Panther movie, they just went through the roof. Yeah.
And that's why I got the main ones, like First Killmonger, First Madam Slade, the one with the Ku Klux Klan.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
But a lot of them were like $20+ dollars, and I would have to find certain locations. That's what I love about going down to Tampa and stuff, because there's so many shops down there. Whatever I don't find in Orlando, I go down there and I'll find something.
Yeah, I mean, some of that stuff you can find in like dollar bins if you're lucky. Because because the sort of the non-key issues.
Yeah.
People, you can pick those up. I'm not even sure how many in that run. I just do you know
24 issues.
24 issues. Okay. So that's not as bad as Conan.
Not as bad as Conan.
Yeah, it's more doable.
But considering that a couple of them were like $20, $30 and stuff, hey, like, there's a certain part of the Conan run where you can find for dirt cheap, like $2 and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But when you have a smaller run like Jungle Action and this Black Panther and he's hot in the movies, they spiking the price on the books.
Yeah. So I'm curious, like, what would be your favorite character?
Spider-Man is my favorite, followed by Superman. Like those two characters resonated with me a lot, especially Spider-Man, because the whole line of what great power comes great responsibility.
Yeah, I love that.
Anybody can relate to that line. Because even if you can get to a certain point in your life where you have that power, you got to be responsible for the stuff that comes afterwards.
Well, that's why I liked your story about the Superman book, because that's really what it shows. It shows that, he has to be very conscious about protecting life.
Yeah.
And that's actually a challenge. That's actually something like, that's why I always like the whole trope with Superman, where he has to choose between saving Lois Lane or saving a bus full of kids or something, like that kind of situation. And he tries to do both, obviously, because he's Superman. But there's always that challenge that he has to, decide who survives and who dies, and
Yeah,
that's and
and
that's
there's always that guilt
yeah,
of whenever somebody that one person dies, that guilt
yeah, yeah.
of and another story, even though it's kind of cheesy, but I
Mhm.
really enjoyed it, was the Batman Venom book, which was the introduction to the Venom that Bane uses. I
Okay,
think it was Legend of the Dark Knight, but it also
yeah, I
showed
like that
how
one actually. The
it
Venom run.
showed how guilty Batman was that he wasn't strong enough to save a child who was drowning, and that
Hmm.
as soon as he took that venom, he was strong, but it started messing up his mind.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that was
It's
it was really great. That was a
yeah,
I
it's,
really
it's
liked
stories
that whole
like
run.
that really like captures what these heroes go through when it comes to not being strong enough. But then once you get that power, you start losing the responsibility that you had prior.
Yeah, you forget how important it is to be, I don't know, more human in a way. They lose their
Yeah,
humanity is what happens. They don't realize how valuable even the simplest life is. You know what I mean? Like, because like when you become a god, like, oh, why save all these ants that are humans, right? Like, so
that sounds like the new gods,
yeah,
because
yeah, yeah. That's what I'm
the
saying. Yeah,
basically people on the planet were ants.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's what's really lacking from movies nowadays, that they've lost that hero, like what a hero means. Like there's no heroes in movies nowadays. I find like they don't, you know, and that's maybe why I liked Black Adam, because you got like Hawkman. I loved Hawkman in the Black Adam movie. Actually, I really enjoyed him. The guy that he did him so well, where he's like Black Adam is deliberately killing people because he's evil. He's not a good guy. And
Yeah,
then
he's
you got
not.
Hawkman deliberately trying to save the people. It's just I just love that dynamic.
And
So.
that's what made it fun. And it's funny. I read Jeff Johns' JSA run. When I
Mhm.
started like getting back in the comics, I picked up the omnibuses and I read it. And the JSA was so well written by Jeff Johns,
Mhm.
and that's what made me want to explore more of the DC universe.
Mhm.
Seeing these characters that really don't get the shine
I
from
know.
DC itself. Like they focus so much on Batman and Superman and to a certain extent Wonder Woman, that they have such a rich history
Yeah.
of these characters. Like it was great seeing Doctor Fate in the
Yeah.
movie, and I remember when they teased Doctor Fate just with his helmet in the Constantine TV show,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and I remember Constantine, with the Keanu Reeves movie, I enjoyed,
Mhm.
but
Yeah. I like that.
when I read the comics, I was like, man, Keanu Reeves ain't as great as the
He,
Constantine in the comics.
he wasn't the
He's
right
much
guy.
raw. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's why Matt Ryan had the perfect look for that Constantine that he did.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I
You
liked
know,
him in the cartoon much more than I mean I like Keanu Reeves, but he doesn't look like Constantine. He's
he
not.
looked like Keanu Reeves.
He looks like Keanu Reeves. Um, but I'm a big fan. Like I love Golden Age stuff. And that's why I do love the JSA. I just love like Atom Smasher, Doctor Fate, Spectre. All these kind of Golden Age characters that are just, there's something about them that they're very different than the more modern like Justice League, those kind of characters. I just, there's something about them. They're just different, and I kind of like, I
I
like the
remember
golden.
the Justice League cartoon where they did that episode where they met the old
The
Golden Age
yeah,
characters
yeah,
and stuff,
yeah,
and that was such a fun episode. And you felt for those Golden Age characters when at the end of it.
yeah.
But I
Hmm.
was like, I like when DC does this. This is why they need to be more proactive in getting all these characters involved with their shows. I mean, as
Yeah.
much as people crap on the CW universe, and it
Hmm.
sometimes deserves to be crapped on,
Yeah, yeah,
at least they introduce a whole bunch of characters that weren't getting used in movies.
yeah. Actually, you know what's funny? I for DC, I always found that they're terrible at making movies, like live action, but
Hmm.
their cartoons are really good.
Yes.
Their cartoons are actually like, they're like why can't they just do that? in the movies.
The
And then I think,
Batman animated series set the tone,
oh, that was
and
such, I love that series. That's what like really made me love the character Mr. Freeze.
man,
You know,
don't get me started with Mr. Freeze, man,
I
because
you know that
I
was
remember when Varangian Vigilante said,
mhm,
"Hey, we want to talk Batman Forever and Batman and Robin." I was like,
mhm.
"I'll talk forever," but I refuse to acknowledge Batman and Robin because of what they did to Mr. Freeze.
Oh
I'm a
yeah, that was
Schwarzenegger
so
fan,
bad.
but no,
That was I
that was horrible.
yeah,
The Mr.
yeah,
Freeze in the animated series was so tragic, was
yeah,
so well written,
yeah.
and you actually have a villain that you're sympathizing with.
Yeah,
You know,
he's sympathetic, and you can kind of understand where he's coming from. It's not he's not like almost when they're too like villainous. It's you can't relate to them in a way as a villain. You know,
yeah,
like they don't seem to have any real motivation. Oh, sure, they want money or they want to destroy the world for some stupid reason.
and
But
they
Mister
kind
Freeze
they
makes
kind of
sense.
went away with that with Two Face because he
Yeah,
started out as a sympathetic villain with how his origin story, but
yeah,
then then he just embraced the crime side and kind of ditched
yeah.
the whole regular Harvey thing.
Yeah, I kind of, the thing I always, Two Face is another character I really like. I like the fact that he's kind of like Joker in a way, that crazy side, and then the normal side. He's two persons really, and he's always in between, like, because he flips the coin to make the decisions, and I kind of like that, almost dual personality that he can go either way.
And
I think
I
that's
think it
cool.
was No Man's Land, Batman No Man's Land. There was a story where he put Renee Montoya and Jim Gordon on trial,
Hmm.
and he was the lawyer and he mostly big bad Harv, and he's trying to
Yeah, yeah.
incriminate them and stuff. But then they flipped it on him and said, "Well, what about Harvey? Harvey Dent, not Two Face, but Harvey Dent."
Yeah, yeah,
And they flipped on him. Now he questioning himself, both
yeah.
characters, and then he ended up crumbling on it because there was the point of you're doing these crimes, but yet you still have that innocence inside you. It,
Yeah, yeah,
it was so well written.
yeah,
I
yeah.
like when they play with that element of his character because they don't really do it enough.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I mean, DC uh, like it doesn't get the love that and respect that it deserves, but it has some amazing characters. Like,
Yes.
I think Batman's villain gallery is just like some of the best villains in comics. Like, just like you got Joker, Two Face, Clayface, um, Ra's al Ghul, this like, Penguin, all these really amazing characters.
And a lot of Batman villains is more psychological than physical.
Mhm. Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what that's the thing about Batman villains that make them stand out. It's not
yeah,
always about fighting.
yeah. And
Because
for the most part, they don't have any superpowers.
yeah,
Like they're just
like
regular guys.
outside of like maybe Clayface and
Yeah.
Killer Croc and stuff like that, most of
Hmm.
his villains is more of a psychological advantage. I
Hmm.
mean, the Scarecrow, probably one of the most terrifying villains
Yeah,
when
yeah,
written well, can definitely have an advantage on you with that Scarecrow toxin and
yeah.
stuff. The Arkham video games really made me scared of Scarecrow when he's in
I've
his
never
big
played.
form.
Is it good? Like,
You gotta play the Arkham games, at least the first two.
no, okay. I actually I think I watched a video. Like sometimes you know how they have the cut scenes in those
Yeah,
video games. I've seen a video where they kind of like lace those together into a movie. Like
yeah,
I thought that was kind
yeah.
of cool. Yeah, I wish I had more time to play video games. I do love video games. I just never seem to have the time to play.
I, Lately, for me, video games has been kind of like late last place for me because
Hmm.
of the time and stuff between
Hmm.
comics and working and other stuff. So video games hasn't really been getting my attention. My brother's a big video game nerd. Like
Hmm.
he loves comics, video games, and stuff. But he tends to play the video games whenever he has free time.
Okay,
So,
yeah. But so I should wrap it up soon. Just quickly, what are you up to? Where can people find you? I'll put all the links in the description. So, but just what are you up to recently?
well, I haven't really been doing much new content on my YouTube page, but my YouTube page is my name, Puff Comics 83.
Hmm.
Instagram, the same. I'm also part of the Comic Call crew. We
Hmm.
do a live stream twice a month. We'll be returning, I think, after maybe this Saturday or next Saturday, one or two. But
Yeah.
we'll be back on there. And plus, Matt, Comic Call. I know I saw a replay of the Comic Collector Club yesterday, and he was on there, and I can't
Hmm.
wait to watch the video with you and him because
Yeah,
that's
we're
going.
doing an interview,
Yeah,
so that'll air before this airs. But so it's kind of weird how that works. But um, yeah, I really like Matt and I. Like we always joke that we're basically twins because we're very similar. Like when we were talking, like we had like almost like parallel lives. It's so funny.
and I'm
Yeah.
glad. I'm glad. I asked Matt if he wanted to join the Comic
Hmm.
Collector Club because ever
Hmm.
since he's been on there, it's been a blast having him, and
Yeah, he's
I'm
good. Yeah,
glad he was able to join.
yeah.
And then of
So
course me and VV, we do a movie talk 4 p.m. Eastern every Friday. I have a playlist on my channel. You can check
okay.
that out. Subscribe to VV because he does awesome content as well. I always say my Austrian brother because
Yeah,
me and
yeah.
him,
That's so funny.
yeah, but me and him we're so tight and stuff. So definitely check out our movie talks. We make sure we choose movies that we really enjoy and just critique them and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
That's
but
cool. So okay, so I guess thank you for coming on to the show. I will link to all of your stuff in the description. So I definitely recommend anyone that's watching this video check out Puff on Instagram, on YouTube, and we'll both be together on Biggie's show. So you can check us
yeah,
both out
I was
there.
I wasn't able to make it yesterday, but I'll be on the next show.
Yeah. Actually, I didn't see you last time. So yeah, um, Matt was there though. It's kind of funny. So yeah. So again, thanks for coming on the show, and we'll have to do this again sometime.
Oh yeah, man. There's a whole lot to talk about. You know,
Hmm.
there's a whole lot. Because one thing about comics, I will say, is that comics brings us together, and then we can branch out and talk about other things that we love.
Yeah, related.
Like if we talk about the real Ghostbusters, man, I could break down all the episodes on that.
I really like. I watched that show like when it came out, right? And that's like 20, 30 years ago, maybe
30
now.
something, yeah,
Yeah,
86.
geez, it's like okay, making me feel old, man. Okay, um, it was only a couple days ago. Okay, um, so it's been a while, and I love this show. I really almost feel like watching, going back and watching them again because it's been so long, and I love that show. I think it was brilliant. Yeah, and what you should do. This would be cool, and we should maybe do this together sometime. Is watch an episode like how some people will do like almost like reaction videos, but they're like watching a show
Mhm.
and they're talking about it. We should almost do that together. That'd be fun.
I'll be down for it.
Yeah, cool. Okay, so I better let you go, but thanks again for coming on the show, and bye everyone.
Later, y'all.